After failing to win over the 3 female leads, I faced complete erasure by the system. The system gave me one last chance. If I could accumulate enough regret points within a single day, I could still return to my own world. So, I asked my A-list actress wife for a divorce. She just sneered, signed without a moment's hesitation, and slammed the papers against my chest. Next, I took the initiative to sever ties with my mother, Susan Miller, and she excitedly told me to get the hell out so she could make room for her illegitimate son. Finally, I agreed to my own sister's request and signed the organ donation form. She just told me to die quickly so she could have my heart carved out for her first love. A cold, mechanical voice reminded me, "Host, you have one last chance remaining. Mission failure will result in immediate erasure." I no longer held out any hope, calmly accepting my fate. At the awards ceremony, Caleb Thorne lost Best Actor by a single vote. As the presenter for the evening, Chloe Vance saw this, immediately grabbed the microphone, and confessed her love to him with deep emotion. "Caleb, in my heart, you will always be the best actor." The entire hall erupted in thunderous applause. The shipping hashtag for Chloe and Caleb shot to the top of the trending topics, going viral instantly. I turned off my phone, my heart a pool of stagnant water. No matter how hard I tried, my targets would always end up falling for Caleb Thorne, completely and utterly devoted to him. Even though Chloe and I were married, she still had to declare her love for him to the entire world. Late that night, Chloe came home. In the bright light of the living room, the hickey on her neck was clearly visible. Seeing that I was still awake, Chloe said nothing and went straight into the bathroom to shower. When Chloe came out of the bathroom, she was surprised to find me still sitting on the sofa. She noticed the divorce papers on the coffee table, flipped through a few pages casually, and a cold sneer formed on her lips. "This is why you'll never be better than Caleb. You're just so petty." Her voice dripped with sarcasm as she unhesitatingly picked up a pen, signed her name, and slammed the papers down on me. A sharp pain shot through my shoulder, and I winced. "I know you're just playing hard to get." Chloe looked smug. "Ethan, don't think for a second I'm going to beg you to stay. You want a divorce? Fine, you've got it. How does that feel? Happy now? Satisfied?" Chloe burst out laughing. The next second, she was glaring at me, her eyes so venomous they looked like they could kill. Truly an A-list actress. "I bet you won't dare to actually go to City Hall and finalize this. When you're done with your little game, get your ass to bed." I gathered the papers and cut her off. "Yes, I'm satisfied. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. City Hall. Don't be late." A flicker of surprise crossed Chloe's eyes, quickly replaced by even deeper contempt. "You'd better mean it." She forcefully stubbed out her cigarette in the ashtray and slammed the bedroom door shut. I turned, walked into the guest bedroom, and quietly waited for morning. I was up early and called out to Chloe as she was about to head out the door. "I already spoke with your assistant. Your morning appearance has been postponed. You promised me. We're going to City Hall." Before I could finish, she threw down her sunglasses, stormed over, and slapped me hard across the face, her eyes dangerously sharp. "Are you asking for it? How dare you mess with my schedule?" She didn't stop, each blow landing harder than the last. I squeezed my eyes shut in pain. As if suddenly remembering something, Chloe shot a guilty glance at the living room security camera, then deliberately used her body to block the view of me, disguising the assault as an intimate moment to hide the evidence. "Chloe, I won't tell anyone about this. If you don't believe me, you can record me right now." My eyes were bloodshot as I stared straight at her, making my concession. She narrowed her eyes, trying to find any sign that I was lying. Just as I was about to pass out, Chloe finally stopped and kicked me back into a chair. She expressionlessly unplugged the camera, pulled out her phone, and started the voice recorder. Clutching my chest, I recited the lines she fed me, personally confessing to all sorts of mistakes I had supposedly made during our marriage. That I was irresponsible, that I fooled around, and that from start to finish, Chloe was the innocent victim who had never, ever been unfaithful. Now that she had leverage, Chloe was satisfied. For the first time in a long while, she actually opened the car door for me. "Let's go." I sat in the back. I pretended not to see the man's jacket on the passenger seat, or smell the cologne that filled the car, and just stared calmly out the window. I remembered her gentle, beautiful face, the way she used to softly call me her husband. She was a natural-born actress. I could never tell which version of her was real. Now she was deeply in love with Caleb, and her affection level for me had plummeted below 10%. I no longer dreamed of us getting back together. It was just too exhausting. "Chloe, after this, we're done. We have nothing to do with each other anymore." She tilted her head, her eyes landing on a cute little ornament on the dashboard, and a small smile played on her lips. You're right, but first, we have to get through this damn mandatory waiting period. There was no need to wait. I would be leaving her forever tonight. There were only 12 hours left on the system's clock. I went to the largest corporation in the state and knocked on the office door of my second target, my own sister. She had taken our mother's last name, while I had taken our father's. Megan Miller wasn't surprised to see me. She had a private investigator tailing me. None of my movements escaped her notice. Got some backbone now, do you? Daring to divorce that Vance woman. She gave a knowing smile, but it held no warmth, only a sinister chill in her eyes. Both Chloe and I were nothing but thorns in her side. The doting sister from my memories seemed like a different person, as if her soul had been replaced by this paranoid stranger. Ethan, I'll protect you for your whole life. No one will ever bully you. The vow she made under the old oak tree when we were kids still echoed in my ears. Now that we were grown, she was one of the people who hurt me the most. It all started when Caleb Thorne moved in. He was our mother's illegitimate son. When my father passed away, Caleb's biological father brought him to stay with us for a while. At first, Megan was just as hostile towards Caleb as I was, shunning both him and his homewrecker father. But as they spent more time together, that glacier of hers slowly began to melt, eventually turning into a warm lake. No matter how many times she pushed him away, Caleb would follow her around, constantly telling her, "You're the best sister ever." Megan's face would turn bright red, and she'd quickly avoid my gaze, her voice growing flustered. Her 90% affection level refused to budge. Then one day, it slowly dropped by a single percentage point. It turned out that when I wasn't around, she had started calling him her little brother, gradually taking an interest in his schoolwork and his life. When someone at school started hitting on Caleb, I saw Megan get into a fight for him, her eyes red with fury. Even after getting a major demerit, she came home to a tearful Caleb, and when he comforted her, she felt like it was all worth it. After school, Megan was waiting outside my classroom. I was overjoyed, thinking she was there to walk me home. Megan. All I got in return was a cold stare. Don't call me that. I don't have a brother like you. I froze on the spot as my classmates started staring. Megan looked down at me and demanded, "You're the one leading the charge to isolate Caleb." What? My mind went blank, and I repeated the word unconsciously. But Megan had lost her patience. She spat out one last cold sentence before turning to the classroom next door to get Caleb. "Since you enjoy being a bully, let's see how you like being bullied for a change." I stared blankly after her, a terrible feeling of dread spreading through me. From that day on, all my classmates avoided me. They'd call me the son of a homewrecker, both to my face and behind my back. I endured constant dirty looks and pranks. My homework would be soaked, dead insects would appear in my backpack, and my things would constantly go missing. To protect Caleb, Megan deliberately reversed our roles, telling everyone that he was the true heir and that I was the shameless illegitimate son. Faced with their taunts and ridicule, I had no way to defend myself. Megan started taking him to corporate events until everyone, both inside and outside the company, believed Caleb Thorne was the true heir. His current status in the entertainment industry was largely thanks to the Miller family's backing. "Megan, what do I have to do for you to just leave me alone?" I looked into her eyes, my expression lifeless. To keep me from getting in Caleb's way, Megan sabotaged every job I tried to get. I had absolutely no privacy. The slightest thing that displeased her would earn me one of her check-ins. "I heard you went to the mall today. You walked past Caleb's billboard. Why did you stop to look at it? I'm warning you, don't get any funny ideas about him, or you'll regret it." I was sick of being watched. "Leave you alone?" Megan sneered, then violently swept everything off her desk. "When you were bullying Caleb at school, giving him all that trauma, did you ever think about leaving him alone?" Megan walked up to me, hands in her pockets, and raised a hand to pat my cheek. "Not too hard, not too soft," she said through gritted teeth. "That fire on set, I know you had something to do with it. Sooner or later, I'll find the proof, and I'll personally send you to prison." I smiled and nodded. "Fine, I did it. I was wrong. What will it take for you to forgive me?" For a second, Megan looked surprised, her expression unreadable. She turned and pulled a file from her drawer. She had clearly been prepared for this. On the cover were the words, "Organ donation consent form." She wanted me to give my heart to Caleb after I died. "Sign this, and I'll let the past go." She glanced at me sideways, as if waiting for my reaction. "I won't hurt Caleb, and you will never bother me again. That was my condition." Of course. Megan agreed without hesitation. I immediately signed the form. An almost imperceptible flicker of shock crossed Megan's face. She watched me leave with a strange look in her eyes. Megan, this is the last time I'll ever call you my sister. I turned back to look at her one last time. Megan looked away, uncomfortable. If Dad were watching from beyond the grave, what do you think he'd feel, seeing you treat the man who drove him to his death like a father? Megan was speechless, her embarrassment slowly turning to rage. Who are you to lecture me? I walked away, leaving her to her rage. That should count as cutting ties with her, I thought. I said to myself. A moment later, I got a notification from the system. Affirmative, host. Megan Miller has fired the private investigators. Your freedom has been restored. Next, I just had to face Susan Miller, my mother in this world. I had originally thought that winning a parent's love would be easier than winning a romantic partner's. That's why I chose Susan as my first target, trying my best to be a good son, doing everything I could think of to make her happy. Her affection level always hovered around 50%. When I got into a top high school, it barely climbed to 60%. Then I found out about Caleb. He didn't have to do a single thing to earn Susan's unconditional love and adoration. The system said Susan was the hardest of the three to win over. She wasn't just an irresponsible mother. She was a shrewd businesswoman. In her eyes, there was no emotion, only profit. The only reason she married my father was because my grandparents could help her business. Years later, she had become the chairwoman of the board, a titan of industry. She looked down on my aging grandparents and cast my father aside. She was getting revenge for every slight she had ever endured as a daughter-in-law, which led to Caleb and his mother. When my father learned the truth, his anger caused a relapse of an old illness. He was bedridden for a few months and then passed away. Living under the same roof, she treated Caleb and me completely differently. Caleb, sweetie, Mommy brought you a new present. Do you like it? Ethan, what are you standing there for? Go get dinner on the table. I was treated like a live-in maid, ordered around constantly. The mother I knew, who was strict but loving, was gone forever. My Caleb is so handsome, especially when he's all dressed up. You should be studying, not messing with hair gel. You're not secretly dating someone at school behind my back, are you? You're just as worthless as your father, deep down. Her sharp words cut me again and again. Caleb's grades were terrible, so she sent him to study abroad for a fancy degree. Meanwhile, I paid for my own college with student loans and by working multiple part-time jobs. She claimed it was to build character, but really, she was just afraid I would outshine Caleb. Every time she looked at me, she was reminded of my father and the submissive life she used to lead, a life that wounded her pride. I almost never contacted Susan, but she always found a way to reach me, forcing me to do exactly as she commanded. My marriage to Chloe was her arrangement. Caleb is going to be a huge star. He needs someone to guide him, and a sister-in-law like her is perfect. As for his future wife, I have someone much better in mind. That's not your concern. She waved her hand, signaling for her secretary to escort me out. She wouldn't even look me in the eye. Now, my calls to her went straight to voicemail after a few rings. I stood outside the hospital and sent a picture of a medical form to Susan's secretary via iMessage. I had a vasectomy. You won't be getting that grandson you've been dreaming of. Less than half an hour later, Susan kicked open my hotel room door, her furious roar deafening. It echoed down the hall. How could the Miller family produce such a disgraceful son? Susan grabbed me by the collar and slapped me across the face. Beneath her silver hair, her eyes burned with rage as she stared me down. I felt dizzy for a moment, my cheek stinging with a burning pain. That was my grandson. Who gave you the right to do that? You are unbelievably stupid. You could have used a child to keep Chloe tied to you. Susan was furious at my incompetence, pointing at me as she screamed. I never should have had you. You and your father are both worthless bastards. She spat on the floor, then snatched my suitcase, dumped its contents on the bed, and grabbed the hospital report. Her eyes, sharp as knives, scanned the text. Which hospital did this? I'm going to make them pay. Susan was getting older and desperately wanted a grandchild. She'd see photos on Facebook of her friends with 4 generations of their family and be consumed with envy. She was constantly forcing me to take Chloe to the hospital for checkups, but Chloe never got pregnant. Ever since Chloe met Caleb, she hadn't touched me. Susan knew, of course, that something was going on between them. To save the family's reputation and protect Caleb's image, she had deliberately arranged for Chloe and me to get drunk and be thrown into a hotel room together. When we woke up the next morning, Chloe hated my guts. Her affection level plummeted. You despicable, shameless bastard. I didn't say a word in my defense, pretending I hadn't heard her clinging to me all night, crying out Caleb's name. Susan couldn't bring herself to blame Caleb, so she put all the blame on me. Chloe and I are divorced. I'm not fit to be your son. I tried to pull myself up from the floor, but I had no strength, like a heap of dead weight. What? The veins on Susan's forehead bulged. She was a step behind Megan in getting the news. This was the daughter-in-law she had handpicked. Any mistake could be forgiven. Even their public shipping was just a ploy to make money. The bodyguard beside her shoved me again, and the small of my back slammed into the corner of a table. The pain was excruciating. You could have been a part of the Vance family. Now you're just a divorced, disgraced man. What woman is ever going to want you? Just let me go and die on my own. Tears of pain squeezed from the corners of my eyes. I missed my real mom and dad so much. I reached out desperately, calling for them over and over, but I couldn't touch even their shadows. Please just let me die. Seeing my utter despair, Susan became even more enraged. Fine, I'll grant your wish. Where's the lawyer? Get him over here. I'm disowning this ungrateful son today. If you die in a ditch somewhere, don't expect anyone to come collect your body. My vision blurred. The intense pain was destroying my consciousness, pushing me to the brink of collapse. Susan's voice grew faint. A tide of exhaustion washed over me, wrapping me in its layers. I closed my heavy eyelids and drifted into darkness. Congratulations, host. Phase 1 is complete. You have successfully severed ties with all 3 female leads. You have 6 hours remaining. Regret points are now being calculated. I was still alive, floating near them as a spirit, a detached observer quietly witnessing the aftermath of my death. The 24-hour deadline set by the system included the time after I died. As soon as Phase 1 was complete, it triggered an event that caused my sudden death, accelerating the plot. Once the countdown ended, I would face my true and final death. Ethan, are you listening to me? Are you pretending to be dead? Susan hated it when I was unresponsive. It was like punching cotton, leaving her completely unsatisfied. The face of the man who had been dead for years reappeared in her mind. Susan, filled with disgust, kicked me a few times. I remained completely still. It didn't look like I was faking it. The seasoned executive, who had clawed her way to the top, looked slightly surprised. Her secretary, who had some medical training, sensed something was wrong. She rushed over, pried open my eyelids, shone a penlight into my pupils, and her face went pale. Ma'am, this is bad. We need to call an ambulance for Mr. Harris, now. Hearing this, Susan froze. A terrible premonition washed over her as she fumbled to dial 911. Hello? My son is in trouble. Send your best doctor. The address is… What do you mean, as soon as possible? If anything happens to my son, I'll have your heads. She threw the phone down and knelt beside me, gripping my hand. Her voice trembled, and her cold face was etched with pure terror. Ethan, wake up. Mommy's here. You're going to be okay. Mom? I thought, dazed. 10 minutes ago, she had wanted me to die in a ditch so I wouldn't dirty the family plot. What was she so afraid of now? The ambulance finally arrived. Paramedic tried to prepare Susan. Ma'am, we'll do everything we can, but you need to prepare yourself. Prepare myself? Susan's eyes widened. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She stumbled backward. What are you trying to say? Say it plainly. The paramedics remained silent, taking turns performing CPR. Pale-faced, Susan followed the ambulance to the hospital. Megan, having gotten the news, rushed there too, pacing anxiously outside the emergency room. Mom, what did you do to Ethan? Megan finally broke the silence. The look they exchanged was explosive. Susan shot back impatiently. Are you lecturing me now? It's a reasonable suspicion. Megan's intensity matched her mother's. When Ethan collapsed, only you and your secretary were there. You're getting bold, aren't you? Susan's temper flared. The two of them had a vicious argument right there in the hospital hallway, shattering the facade of civility they usually maintained. You old witch, what do you ever do besides forcing Ethan into a loveless marriage? You little brat, he's your brother too, and you're even more biased than I am. They stopped only when the light above the operating room door went out. They both turned, only to receive the worst possible news. Impossible. My brother can't be dead. Megan cried out, distraught, clutching her hair with vacant eyes. Nonsense. My Ethan is perfectly fine. Susan ripped back the white sheet. My body was already stiff, my muscles beginning to contract. This woman, who had seen everything, was suddenly red-eyed with tears. My son, she wailed, her voice raw, clinging to my body and refusing to let go. Ethan, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. Please wake up, okay? Megan took my cold hand and pressed it to her cheek. Her hot tears fell on my skin, and it felt like they were searing my very soul. Host, what do you predict their regret levels will reach? The system asked curiously. I shook my head. I didn't know. Maybe it was just pity for a dead man. As soon as Caleb showed up, they would quickly move on and forget I ever existed. It had always been that way. Nothing I ever did could compare to Caleb. Chloe and Caleb arrived at the hospital just in time to see this. Chloe stopped dead in her tracks, sucking in a sharp breath, unable to summon the courage to come closer. Beneath her sunglasses, her cold eyes suddenly welled with tears. Chloe. Caleb put a hand on her arm, his voice gentle and concerned. I'm fine. Chloe quietly pulled her arm away, putting some distance between them. She had come to see me one last time as my ex-wife. Ignored for the first time, Caleb's lip twitched. Whatever. He didn't need to compete with a dead man. All three of these women would be his in the end. My husband. This isn't a dream. This isn't a movie. Chloe's heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. She managed a pale, weak smile. Stop playing around. Let's go home. I'm taking you home. Ignoring everyone's protests, Chloe started dragging my body, struggling with each step toward the exit. Even with her mask and sunglasses, passers-by recognized the famous actress. They secretly took photos and posted them online, and a media storm began to brew. Delete that. It's not what you think. Caleb furiously slapped the phone out of a bystander's hand. If the news that Chloe was married got out, it would damage her career. Stop. Megan's voice cut through the air. Ethan is my brother. You two are divorced. If anyone is taking him home, it's me. No, we're still in the waiting period. I take it back. I don't agree to the divorce. He's my husband for life. Chloe hugged me tightly, greedily breathing in my scent like a desperate, obsessed woman. When one spouse dies, the marriage is automatically terminated. Megan was the first to regain her composure. She shot a cold look at Caleb, who flinched and took a half-step back. When you were creating all that buzz with him, did you ever once remember that Ethan was your husband? You don't deserve to be his wife. Give him back to me. Megan didn't bother arguing. She simply and forcefully took her brother back. Chloe looked blankly at a panicked Caleb, and then she suddenly remembered what I had said in the car. Chloe, after this, we're done. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. The man who had loved her so deeply was gone, alone in another world. The glamorous actress slumped against the wall, sliding down to the floor to hug her knees and sob. Caleb tried to comfort her, but she ignored him completely. Someone stopped Megan. Ma'am, according to the patient's pre-registered wishes, his body is to be donated. We can't release him to the family at this time. Susan, who had been silent, flinched. When did he register? Why didn't I know about this? Megan bit her lip, her voice breaking. Today. Susan suddenly understood. She glared at Megan, then at Caleb. You monster. She slapped Megan across the face, her expression one of pure agony. He was your brother, too. You grew up with him. Megan silently took the blow. I just had him sign the form. I didn't think he'd actually go through with it himself. To make sure the system wouldn't invalidate it, after leaving Megan's office, I had gone straight to the nearest registration center and completed the official process myself. The three of them watched, heartbroken, as my body was taken away. In the corner, Caleb smirked. Finally dead, he muttered under his breath. I floated right in front of him, studying that handsome face. Caleb Thorne, America's heartthrob, was rotten to the core. He was jealous of everything I had. Just like his father before him, he had conspired with Susan to steal her away, fabricated lies about being bullied to turn my own sister against me. He had fame, fortune, everything he could ever want, and yet he still carried on an affair with his sister-in-law. I would never understand him. Hashtags about Chloe Vance's secret marriage and divorce exploded online. Netizens quickly dug up the entire history of her affair with Caleb Thorne. Chloe Vance cheats, Caleb the homewrecker, affair drives husband to suicide. All sorts of negative hashtags dominated the trending topics. Caleb's PR team was in overdrive, but Chloe's camp remained silent. She was still lost in her grief. At 10 p.m., with less than an hour left on the clock, Chloe's current regret level, 85%. Megan's current regret level, 80%. Susan's current regret level, 70%. I braced myself for my final erasure by the system. I was so sorry to my family in my real world. I was so useless. I couldn't even see them one last time before I died for good. Susan had called everyone to the mansion to discuss my funeral arrangements. Caleb sat nervously on the couch, checking his phone every minute, monitoring the online fallout. Why weren't the negative hashtags going away? Megan leaned on the balcony railing, lighting a cigarette in frustration, her mind a chaotic mess. The organ donation form had just been a test. She had already found a heart donor for Caleb. She just hated Ethan's defiance. Why couldn't he just submit? If he had just called her sister, she would have softened. Why isn't that Vance woman here yet? Susan looked up at the clock. Next to it hung the black and white portrait of her late husband. In a few days, his son's portrait would hang beside it. A sharp pang of grief hit her. She had failed her husband and she had failed their son. Her husband must have known she was only after his money, but he had still trusted her completely, supported her career with everything he had. She didn't even love Caleb that much. He was just as manipulative as his father. She had just wanted to escape her past, to forget the face she missed day and night. Instead, she had created a regret that would last a lifetime. The front door opened and Chloe strode in. Without a word, she threw a folder of papers at Caleb. "You liar! You played all of us for fools." Before he could respond, Megan picked up the papers, scanned them quickly, and erupted in fury. "And to think I treated you like a brother. Turns out you're not even related to me." Caleb, realizing what it was, scrambled to snatch the papers back. "No, that's all lies. It's not true, Megan." I floated down, reading over her shoulder as if I were alone. The truth was staggering. No blood relation. Susan keenly picked up on the implications, and the atmosphere in the room dropped to freezing. Caleb was terrified, unable to meet anyone's gaze. The internet detectives had worked faster than anyone could have imagined. In just a few hours, they had unearthed Caleb's entire life story. First came the truth about the fire on set. Caleb had provoked a powerful producer. Then, the bombshell, his congenital heart disease was a complete fabrication, managed by a doctor who was also his relative. Caleb had always found excuses to refuse the specialists Megan had tried to hire for him. Caleb's mother was in on it too. The three of them had been running this con for years, raking in money and sympathy. Netizens had found clues on a reality TV show he'd been on. A patient with a severe heart condition couldn't do strenuous exercise. Yet there was Caleb, chasing a female co-star and running hundreds of yards without breaking a sweat. Then, the story of his father being a homewrecker who drove his first wife to suicide went viral. "Like father, like son," the comments raged. While involved with Susan, Caleb's father had been seeing other women on the side. And before Caleb came to live with them, he'd had plastic surgery. A pre-surgery photo showed he bore a striking resemblance not to Susan, but to another woman his father had been involved with. "You!" Susan was apoplectic, clutching her chest as her face turned beet red. "Mom, I'm your son. Don't listen to the lies online." Caleb sobbed, looking pleadingly at Megan and Chloe. They just stared back with cold disgust. "The bullying story. You made that up too, didn't you?" Megan flicked the ash from her cigarette, then suddenly pressed the burning tip against his arm. Caleb screamed, breaking out in a cold sweat. I had a similar burn mark on my own arm, from when Caleb had framed me for stealing and begged Megan to teach me a lesson. Megan kicked him away and emotionlessly dropped the cigarette. She shouldn't have believed Caleb's side of the story. She should have believed the few brave classmates who had tried to speak up for me. "My brother, I'm so sorry," Megan whispered. Everyone froze. The system's cheerful voice announced, "Congratulations, host. Megan Miller's regret level has reached 100%. I stared at her desolate figure, my own feelings a complicated mix. "You're just as worthless as he was. Get out. Both of you, get out." Susan was breathing heavily as she grabbed Caleb and dragged him out the door. The same words she had used to hurt me, she now hurled at Caleb. Caleb, looking pathetic and knowing it was over, finally dropped the act. "TCH, and who are you to judge? You abandoned your own husband and son. I can't believe I called you Mom. Why did he get to marry Chloe Vance while I get stuck with some boring nerd?" Susan was utterly disappointed. The nerd was a PhD from a good family, a man of impeccable character. What chilled her to the bone was that Caleb knew every detail of the marriage she had been arranging for him. His cunning was deeper than she had ever imagined. Even though Susan doted on him, she had still planned to use him in a power marriage to solidify the company's position. Caleb's tirade continued. Susan frowned in pain, a wave of dizziness washing over her. Megan rushed back to steady her. Mom, congratulations, host. Susan Miller's regret level has reached 100%. The Miller mansion fell deathly silent. 5 minutes left. I followed Chloe as she left. She threw everything Caleb had ever left in her car out the window. Then, as if remembering something, she flipped down the passenger side sun visor. A black tie clip fell out. I had put it there after we were married. I had told her with a smile that it was my way of checking if any other men had been in her car. Caleb was always impeccably dressed for their meetings. The signs were always there, so obvious, and I had chosen to ignore them. Chloe collapsed onto the steering wheel, sobbing uncontrollably. Congratulations, host. Chloe Vance's regret level has reached 100%. The next second, I opened my eyes. I saw the familiar faces of my parents. They were hugging me, their faces streaked with tears of joy. Son, you're finally awake. Oh, thank God. We missed you so much. I lifted my arms, feeling their warmth for the first time in so long. Tears of joy streamed down my face. After all this time, I was finally home. The system's voice grew faint. Congratulations, host. Mission accomplished. $2 million appeared in my bank account. Back with my family, I began to live a quiet, happy life. The system would occasionally check in to update me on their fates. Trapped in a public relations nightmare, the Miller Family Corporation was mismanaged and quickly went bankrupt. Unable to handle the dual collapse of her family and her business, Susan suffered a major stroke that left her partially paralyzed. Megan now works odd jobs to pay off their debts and cover Susan's medical bills. As disgraced celebrities, Chloe and Caleb were blacklisted from the entertainment industry, their careers erased. I heard Chloe was plagued by nightmares about me every night. Eventually, she joined a convent to atone for her sins. As for Caleb, after he and his father were thrown out, he used his looks to find a new benefactor. This time, he became the boy toy for a woman in her 60s. He even secretly sent love letters to that boring nerd he'd once mocked. She had long since forgotten he existed and was happily married to someone else. He had a winning hand and played it into ruin. Goodbye, host. The system said its final farewell. Goodbye for good. I smiled, looking out the window at the world, bright and full of promise.